Go on then, Paul. Kick us off. I was lying when I said I could edit this. Go
on. Should have got a gin and tonic for this, shouldn't I?
It's the easiest line of the lot. Good evening and welcome to Question Time.
He won't be able to say it without he can't keep a straight face.
He's already cracking now, you can see.
Good evening, to Question Time.
So our first question then, our first question is, what was your favourite gala? And let's go to Stuart.
Oh, no pressure then. How many have we done now?
14.
14. I think probably it's still up there. Is probably the Battle of the Atlantics, because it was just mad. We've never done one that ambitious since, and it all sort of came together because you had all the coaches to go with the engines. You had engines that were running in an unusual railway where they wouldn't normally run, and so they were very out of the comfort zone, and it just worked. And no, it was, I think that one, because it was so hard to get organised, from the logistics of shifting 10 coaches, 7 engines, and fitting in the KLR stuff around it, was the challenge of it. And then when it all came together, it was really quite something special. And I don't think we realised it at the time, that you probably would struggle ever to do it again.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
I think my favourite was definitely the Fairborn Gala. Not necessarily just because it was kind of the coming together for a lot of people of their memories of what Fairborn was like, with having Count Louis and Katie and Sharon and things, but all those other bits and pieces which we got in terms of like the carriages and parts of Austin's collection. But I think it's because a lot of people familiarise the locos and all the rolling stock and things with, times from the youth. I think if you're able to reinvigorate some of those memories with people, I think that's actually quite a nice thing to do. Plus, as well, there was quite a it was quite a busy little affair, and I think most people that were involved in the planning or the execution of the day got quite a lot out of that. So for me, that sticks as probably one of my favourites.
It was cracking weather as well, that one.
Yeah. Well, we brought the coast to Humberside, to Huddersfield, didn't we, at the end of the day? And we made more effort. With the sign above the shed doors. All the intermediate stations as well. I think it's the finer points like that which I think set it apart from others.
How about you, Paul?
I think for me, agreeing with Stuart, one of the best goals we've done was Battle of the Atlantics. But on a personal note, I quite liked, and I can't remember the year or the theme, but I quite like the Gala one Captain Prince there, purely because I'd never seen Black Prince before. It's a different style of engine than anything we've ever had, and I just enjoyed that Gala on the whole, purely because I was pilot on Black Prince for a bit, and I really enjoyed that. Felt personal though. Yeah.
That's when we had the captains as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was 2011.
The bouquet of steam, I think we called it.
What about you, Steve?
I must admit, I kind of have fond memories of the first one, but I agree with Stuart. I think the Battle of the Atlantics kind of set the bar, and we've probably never quite reached that bar again, but it set us that challenge to try and make it that good every year. And I think it was Brian Colwell, wasn't it? It said afterwards it had the right atmosphere because everywhere was busy, because we had 4 train sets going up and down, so it didn't matter where you stood at the station, there was pretty much always a training and there was something happening, and it kind of delivered. And I think the scale carriages was nice to bring them in, and it was something very, very different compared to what we've normally got. That was really good room.
We learned lots of lessons at that one as well, didn't we? Because there was, if you think, we learned like don't break the engine the day before of the Gala.
I don't put porridge oats in it.
Don't put porridge oats in, and also make sure that everything definitely goes around the system, and be prepared for the timetable to be torn up.
Yeah. That was we tested something at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, if you know what I mean.
So I've had an extra question that I didn't pre-warn you of because I just thought this was quite nice. But out of all the engines we've had, I'm not going to ask you if there's a favourite because that's not really fair because nobody can have one. But is the one that's impressed you more than some of the others?
I'll go out because I wrote my earlier point that I think it's got to be Black Prince for me. I really enjoyed it. I was impressed with it when Mr. Horde managed to bring it to a stand outside the tunnel, but we'll not mention that.
On 4 coaches.
Yeah.
I'll give you 2 turns to think. I think for me, the one that's impressed me out of all of them has been St Egwin. And everybody kind of hyped it before it came, and I think we were all a little bit pessimistic. And I think when it came, it was just a brilliant little bit of kit, wasn't it?
And I'd completely agree with you there, Steve, because it's particularly when there was a rescue mission where I had to come trundling down to help Anne come up the hill because Stuart had been too rough. But I spent a day, obviously, as pilotman on that, and I thought it was brilliant. Really was. Really was.
Yeah,
What was the question again?
Which surf was most impressed you?
Well, of course, I would have to say River Might from the Ravenglass Railway. Well worth a visit.
Edit.
Yeah. But the one that I think there's 2 that I think really did. I really found good to work with, and the first one was the first time the real Cagney visited, because it, and actually the other Cagney as well, the pair of those little engines far outperformed what we were expecting them to do, and with careful handling they really put smiles on everyone's faces, and you never expected that. And the other engine that come close to that, who we'll need to mention because he'll get upset if we don't, is Sunni from Perrygrove, because what is essentially, and I don't mean it in a rude way, a toy engine, when it set off on test trains that were far beyond what it should really do, and it did it without too much fuss, and it just sort of was nice to see something that you don't normally see at the KLR, and it was long enough where you were putting pressure on them, but they could still manage. And I mean, when we stopped on the test train above the tunnel to see if it'd restart the train, which was quite a heavy train for an engine that you can put in the back of a transit van, it just sort of eventually walked away with it. And I think it's still a favourite. I think we all have a soft spot for it, just because it sort of wants to go.
It's like 7/4 gauge size, isn't it? And I remember you pulling Coach Rake out the shed with it, and it was like, blooming heck. Yeah.
And the fact that like it comes with a scale driver who can only just see out the cab windows. You can leave that bit in, Steve.
So I think probably one of the important questions for people is how long does it take for us to plan a gala? And I think Stephen probably got more involvement in this than anybody else has, really.
So to be really honest about it, it probably takes about a year because we generally start straight after the one's happened, and everybody actually spends time in the mess room at the end when most of us want to go to sleep, saying what we're going to do next year. But we do generally have like a wrap up after the gala, don't we, to see what went well, what didn't go well, and we use that kind of feedback to inform our plans for the next year. And we never stop thinking about what we're going to do really and how we can make them better. It's just ongoing, isn't it? You live with it. It's part of life, isn't it? Once you get sucked in, that's it.
And you know, if you need the grass watering anywhere between Clayton West and Shelley, we ask for a Romney engine.
Yeah, it tends to rain a little bit, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So the next question we're going to do then is how, and this one comes from Joe Albert Lawson. How do you decide on the theme for a gala? And I think we'll go to Stu.
Do you want the honest answer or the one that's we should tell people?
We've got to tell the truth. It's very democratic, but tell the truth.
Well, traditionally, we used to decide the theme in our lunch hour, and then we pretended to have a vote at a meeting, even though we'd already decided and invited the engines. So people thought that they were in on it. But generally, it was kind of what engine you picked. You kind of picked an engine you'd like to see, and tried to work a theme out around that. So. And then it was the catchy title to go in the marketing.
Yeah.
And some years the themes were a little more tenuous than others.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say, isn't it, when we decide on the theme, we probably decide on 3 or 4, because sometimes these things take a bit of time to come to fruition, because you can't always guarantee engines are going to be available and people can send them. So we tend to have a hit list, don't we, that we prioritise as a group and then work down it. And some take a long time to come to fruition. I mean, last year's was probably 6 or 7 years in the making in some ways. Various things got in the way. Even the Fairburn one we talked about before, they never seemed to all be in ticket at the same time, did they? There was no Katie, there was no Count Louis, then there was no Shan, and sometimes you just got to, good things come to those that wait, as they say.